when I look at this Dallas 49er game, I can definitely see that the Niners on paper should win. Why? Because the Niners run the ball and stop the run for the most part, though they haven't stopped the run as well as I'd like. But, they run the ball and they stop the run, and Dallas doesn't, just in short, right? They don't run the ball, and they don't stop the run, and they don't really have much of a running game. So I really love the Niners. But then when I look at a couple other factors, it makes me nervous. Here are those factors. Dallas is coming off a bye week, right? And they're 3-1 after a bye under Mike McCarthy. That's one. Mm-hmm. They just got annihilated by Detroit 2 weeks ago by 38 points. So they've got this new resolve to turn their season around. Then you've got the fact that the Niners have had the upper hand on Dak Prescott. He's thrown 6 picks against them in these recent games. And the Niners, big part of the Niners' success over Dallas has been turnovers. Niners are 3-0 this year when they win the turnover battle. They're 0-4 this year when they're tied or losing the turnover battle. But then the special teams. I mean, the Niners are one of the worst special teams units I've ever seen. They consistently get embarrassed by their counterparts. And now here comes the Cowboys. They're number 1 in the NFL in special teams. So I fear that the Niners are going to get the Cowboys A game. And by the way, the Cowboys have 7 more days of rest. So they're the Cowboys in the middle of the year, as the Niners are limping towards their bye week, the Cowboys are fresh, bouncing off their bye week, recommitting to one another after getting their doors blown off by Detroit at home. They're better on the road than they are at home. They've got a killer special teams. They've got a good record off the bye under McCarthy, and they're desperate. So anybody who thinks that you're going to roll out tomorrow night to Levi's and you're going to see the Niners just roll, and it's just going to be some the Niners Cowboys, think again. This game is going to be tough. Dallas could easily win this game tomorrow night.
Now, Dallas at home this year, they're 0-3 and they've given up 119 points. Right. On the road, they're 3-0 and they've given up 49 points. Now, granted, those 3 teams were the Browns, the Steelers, and the Giants, not offensive juggernauts by any stretch of the imagination. But you mentioned the run game. The only way that I can really justify Dallas winning this game, to me, the rest stuff is huge. Absolutely. They're coming off the bye. They're kind of due. And like you said, they're going to get the Niners A game. But you look at the matchup, the run game. Dallas has run for 80 yards or more just twice this season. That's total 80 yards or more in a game, twice. They're averaging 3.5 yards per carry. And you mentioned Dak. The last 3 games against the Niners, 2 of them are in the playoffs. 14 for 24 for $153, 1 TD and 3 picks. 23 of 37 for 206 and a TD and 2 picks. 23 of 43 for 254, a TD and a pick. So 3 touchdown passes, 6 interceptions. Dak tends to play smaller in these big games. He's a very good regular season quarterback. He puts up numbers, but in these big games, we've seen it over and over again. Dallas is desperate.
He has struggled too, by the way. Dak has struggled as an underdog, 17-19 against the spread in his career, 2-9 against the spread as an underdog in his last 11. So he's struggled since 2020. He's 4-11 since 2020 as an underdog. The only quarterbacks worse are Bryce Young, Minshew, Justin Fields, and Mac Jones. But one thing that you do want to point out is Dak in his career off extended rest. He's got 24 games like that. He's 18-6 against the spread.
Really?
In those games.
That.
Yeah.
And with Dallas too. So if you look at the last 3 times, you think, well, the Niners own Dallas, and the Niners kicked, they beat the hell out of Dallas last year. It was a complete blowout. But those 2 playoff games, just Purdy was phenomenal. It just wasn't close. But those 2 playoff games were ugly games, grinded out kind of games that they played. So it tends to, I know Dallas is beat up, but I don't think we can go in and expect another blowout from the Niners, knowing that most of the past history were kind of ugly, muck it up sort of who's going to make the first mistake type games. We'll see if it comes out that way again, but both teams are desperate. They're both desperate. The Niners cannot go 3-5. The Cowboys got to right the ship. I mean, if the Niners go 3-5, my God, going into the second half of the season, are they going to win 9 games? because I have 3 losses that I think they're definitely going to get in the second half with this iteration of the team. So they have to win. They have to win this week. It's just a huge game for both teams. I can't wait to see what Niners team shows up and how or if they answer the bell.
Well, I mean, it's the whole season on the line. National TV, entire season on the line. And there's always surprises. Micah Parsons will not play.
Which is huge.
There will not be a Micah Parsons surprise, so that's good. Yeah, absolutely huge. There'll be no Deron Bland either. Bland remains out. So the Niners are going to benefit from those two, second and third level defenders not being there. But from what I'm hearing, and I'm not sure if you're hearing anything about this, we didn't mention this the other day, but I just heard this yesterday, that this could be the debut of Dalvin Cook, that he has been on their practice squad, and they've got the worst rush offense in the game. They average, as you said, 77 yards a game. They haven't had a 100-yard rusher in a franchise record 20 games. Now here comes Dalvin Cook, and he had 4 straight 1,000-yard seasons for the Vikings from 2019 through 2022. What do you think, Al? Is Dalvin Cook scarier than Rico Dowdle or Zeke Elliott? Because those are the other options.
I mean, Dalvin Cook hasn't been Dalvin Cook in almost 2 years now. So that doesn't really scare me. He hasn't played in forever. If he does play, I don't see him coming in and, where they're going to give him 15, 20 carries. They'll mix him in because it's been a while. He doesn't scare me. Their running game is kind of a joke. And that's the thing with Dallas. They can't run the ball and they can't stop the run. They give up 143 rushing yards per game. That's 6th worst in the NFL. And they've given up 10 rushing TDs this year, which is the second most. So they're not a good team to stop the run, and they can't run the ball. That bodes well for the 49ers. So I'm not afraid of that. Can they explode in the passing game? Yeah, I mean, the secondary is the Niners' strength, I feel like. But CeeDee Lamb is CeeDee Lamb. He's a terrific player. They can really move the ball. Jake Ferguson, I like him a lot at tight end. And then they have these other guys, Turpin and Tolbert. They're not household names, but they're guys who can catch the ball. So if Dak can get hot, who knows? But you brought up that special teams disparity too. It just seems like every game something happens with the 49ers and special teams. Games where they're up by 2 or 3 scores in a big, you get the return against Seattle and the team gets back in the game. So it's those kind of things that worry me about the 49ers. The special teams gaffes, the turnovers, the way they've let some of these teams back into games. Even if they get a 2-score lead, you're just kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop and something fluky to happen or a long return to happen or whatever it is. And then all of a sudden 21-7 turns into 21-17. And you're like, oh shit, this is a game now. Those are the things that the Niners have to stop doing, in order to put these teams away and get back on the right track, I feel like.
Teams are playing man-to-man a lot more against the Niners because Brock Purdy is struggling against man-to-man. Mm-hmm. He's completing 73% against zone, but 41% against man. The Niners are seeing man coverage at the 4th highest rate in the league now, 49.6, and Purdy's got a 48.2 QBR against it, which is 23rd in the NFL. And as I said, his QBR rises to 76.8 at second best in the NFL against zone. So expect a lot more man coverage, which also means that you may want to take that prop on Purdy's rushing because if you play tons of man against him, odds are one or two times he's going to bail out of the pocket and run for a first down. And I think most of those over-unders are right around 10 yards. So I would take the Purdy rushing over. But what do you think? I mean, if it's as simple as, well, play man and don't play zone against Brock, what's the Niners counter? Or do they have to counter with faster or different personnel?
Well, I'd like to see the Niners just get back to their roots a little bit in terms of committing to running the football and using play action. And another thing I feel like we don't see, I don't love Deebo Samuel running the ball. I feel like the league's kind of caught up to it. He's not breaking those big runs anymore, but I do still love Deebo on those screens. Get the ball in his hands, be the Niners that you're used to being. Stop with this drop back passing game. Run the football, use play action, and I think that'll cure a lot of their ills. Now, there has been an issue with separation with the receivers, and you mentioned the man coverage. If you can't separate, there you go. Yeah. But maybe Kyle can dial some things up and get some people open in space. But you mentioned it on the show the other day with us, is Ayuk was kind of their deep threat. right? He was the guy that they went
Totally.
downfield at. So now you don't have him there. And even if the numbers weren't there for him, they still had to account for Ayuk, and teams were accounting for him. He didn't put up the production, but teams were accounting for him being there. Now you don't have to do that. So we've already seen a lot of guys in the box against the 49ers. It could get to be even more of that if they have receivers who can't separate. Jennings isn't a separator, but he's somebody who gets a lot of big catches for them, contested catches. He's not going to be there. So who's going to make plays in the receiving game? They need George Kittle and Deebo Samuel to step up huge, and Kyle to scheme things up. It's a little scary now looking at that receiver room without Ayuk and saying, oh, okay, there's a week that they can shut them down now. Like there's teams that can really take a lot away in the passing game from the 49ers. And that's a little bit scary as they move forward, because these other teams that have started 3-4, 4-4, the iteration of the 49ers that have started slow, they had a lot of, they hit all the dogs in the race. You know what I mean? They're all whatever. They've had all their main guys throughout the season to be able to rebound. Now you don't have that. You don't have Ayuk on offense. You're not going to have Hargrave. Greenlaw, whenever he comes back, they're going to have to ease him in. Hufanga's probably out for the season, or we'll see if he comes back with a cast or whatever he's going to try to do. But they don't have these guys. So can the notion that they can turn it around, I don't know. I just feel like it's a different season this year.
No,